We're talking tier 2 quarterbacks, spurred from conversations in yesterday's mailbag episode. Dak Prescott, one of them, but where does he rank and who are the tier 2 quarterbacks and who does not belong in tier 1 but is not also in tier 3? And would you rather follow a team that's consistent, doesn't quite get there, or a roller coaster ride of a franchise? We both cover those teams. All that and more in today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. Thanks for hanging with us as we get ready for the 2025 season. I think we have a really interesting conversation going on today's program. And so thanks for stopping in. If you are new to the program, welcome. Subscribe on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast, and drop a comment on YouTube, a question for next week's mailbag, or hit us up at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL on Twitter. And this question kind of spurred from yesterday's conversation. And we had a question about Dak Prescott. Is Dak Prescott overrated, underrated? And in the end, I think we thought, yeah, he's kind of rated properly.
Yeah, that was
good tier 2 quarterback. Now, his contract might be a little high for being the whatever 9th best quarterback, but let's get more specific here, because we've got a question that is a holdover from our mailbag that I think is important for us to answer, because we kind of talk about, there's the elite guys, there's the top 4 guys in the NFL that I think we agree on, and then there's other guys, but I think we kind of put more and more guys in the tier 2, and we can't placate fans, Matt. We've got to draw a line. We've got to say these are the tier 2 quarterbacks, and they're better than the tier 3 quarterbacks, and they are definitely not, though, tier 1 quarterbacks. So this question from Michael says, we know the 4 QBs in tier 1. How many quarterbacks would you consider to be tier 2, and who is the highest end of tier 2, and who is the lowest fringe before tier 3? So let's make sure the first part of that sentence we do all agree on. There's 4 elite quarterbacks in the NFL, tier 1 guys. It's Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow.
Yeah, 100% to me. Okay.
So Michael's in agreement. Matt and I are in agreement. Let us know in the comments if you are not in agreement with that being the tier 1 and a tier break before the next group of quarterbacks. Okay. So now how many quarterbacks are actually in tier 2? We said yesterday that Dak Prescott is one of them, and I would still stand by that. Dak belongs in there. I don't think he would be at the top of tier 2, though, for me.
So we don't have to define it. I don't remember exactly how Mike Sando defines his tiers. But basically, are you winning because of this guy? Not in spite of or dragging him along. And I always say this about the tiers is if I'm an owner and I have a tier 1 guy, I just throw a blank check out there and say whatever you want to, great. I'm dancing in the streets.
There's not enough in a salary cap sport to pay that tier 1 guy.
Right. He's worth more than I can actually give him, So great. Tier 2 guys isn't to that degree, but I'm gladly paying them.
And if you get tier 1 money, because otherwise you end up with potentially a tier 4 quarterback. And there might be some gray area where there's a tier 2, tier 3 guy where it's like maybe there's not that much of a difference, but you start getting into tier 3 for me, and like, okay, now you're around the league average starting quarterback. And if
you might regret paying,
but you might be, the other team still might have a better quarterback than you in half your games.
Absolutely.
In tier 2, you have the better quarterback most of the time, unless you're playing one of those elite guys, or maybe the other guy on the other side's pretty somewhat equal and also still good.
Yep, and you gladly pay him, and if it's even back to the Dak conversation, if it's over market rate, oh well, he's a quarterback, he's the face of my franchise, I'm selling his jersey left and right, billboards, et cetera, et cetera. So when we do these exercises, I always just scan through every division just so I don't miss anyone. So AFC East, Allen's a superstar. Boom. Tua, I'm going to be pretty strict. Tua is not a tier 2 guy. I think he's a high-end 3.
Okay.
May, it's too early, but I have great hope. Fields is a no. We cool on that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. The North.
I mean, Fields
is not even close.
Is a tier 3 or tier 4 argument.
To me, he's a 4, and maybe you hope he turns into a 3.
Yeah, and at times looks like a 3, and it's kind of
and may always be. I mean, like, put up or shut up. He's been around a while.
Yeah.
AFC North. The Browns do not have anything close.
No.
2 of them are tier 1.
And again, like young quarterbacks, there's hope. Like Drake May, he's not a tier 2 quarterback. You hope he's a tier 2 quarterback. He's not there yet.
That's kind of what I was going to say. Is like there's dudes that I have hope will be tier 2 this time, but for now they're incompletes. They're not. I wouldn't even put them in a tier. They're just too young.
Yeah.
Rodgers, on the other hand, is too old. Like
right. He's tier 3 as well.
Yeah, he's 3 for me too. Now I could write a story that he plays like a tier 2 this year in the very opposite way of Drake May, but for now he's not, doesn't count. So right now we've got 0. South. Colts are a no. I think Lawrence is a no right now, but better get there and can get there. So he doesn't still count for me. I'm going to try to be strict on these.
So Lawrence is an interesting one because certainly in the conversation for a tier 2 quarterback, paid like a tier 2 quarterback.
I often get criticized as being too much of a Lawrence supporter. Yeah. Because he has some bad tape. I mean,
well, how many years would be like, well, yeah, but then he'll be getting to that tier this year. He's like,
right.
To be there, and he's kind of just not quite done it.
And I would have paid him if I were the Jags, but I can't give it to him. If I'm going to be a strict grader of this, no brainers. Rest of that division, Tennessee's a no.
Can I stop you real quick?
Please.
I'm thinking tier 3. So the Sando tiers, I think there's too few tiers. I do
too. I think you could almost have 10. He has 5. I
think the way we're looking at this is more like tier 1 elite guys, tier 2 really good. You're better than most of the teams in the league at that spot. Tier 3 is still like, okay, you are a starter, middle of the road, give or take, and then tier 4 is where you start to worry. But I think Sando's tiers
are a little kinder
and a little bigger. So, you might have more tier 2 quarterbacks that are, all the way down below, say, QB 16 in the NFL.
Like with our tiers, and again, we're not really laying it out. Tua is clearly a 3. Fields might be a 4 or 5 if there's 6 tiers or 7 tiers. You know what I mean? Where Sando, he's going to put him as a 4, which is a little kinder.
Yes.
Like Fields might not be a starter next year. I me's a chance that happens, that he's just lifetime backup.
Okay. So 2 and Lawrence are in 3.
Yeah. So as of now, no 2s, but we've gone through 3 of the 4 AFC South teams. I think Stroud's a 2.
Yes.
And a year ago, nobody would have fought us. I don't think just because of one questionable year, people should fight us either.
1 year ago, people were questioning whether he would be a 1 or not.
Right. So I think he's firmly a 2. The West, Mahomes doesn't count. He's out. Herbert's clearly a 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I could write a story where he's a 1. Like that could happen in his career. It's not there now.
He's Trevor Lawrence plus 1 tier. Where you kind of always like, he's going to become a 1. He's going to become 1. Hasn't quite done it.
A lot more faith that he is, you definitely trust Herbert more than Lawrence going forward.
Currently, as we're going through this, Justin Herbert is top of tier 2 so far.
Yes. Although there's a name that I'll come up, I think it might be ahead of him, but we'll get to it. Denver's a no. If you can't put May, there's no way you can put him in. I don't care what tier you put him in. If it's the only question is he tier 2 or not, Denver's no.
Mm-hmm.
Raiders are no. So that's the AFC. And we only have 2 so far, right?
Knicks, just real quick on Knicks and who's the last team you mentioned?
Geno.
Oh, Geno Smith with the Raiders. Okay. Tier 3, though, for those guys?
Yeah. But, still, incomplete grades on guys that are only 1-year starters for the most part too. But
clearly not a 2 for Nix. Showed a lot as
if it's a yes/no question, is this player a 2? It's a no.
Yeah, I want to pause right there. More.
Okay, we'll get in the NFC
and tell you exactly how many tier 2 quarterbacks there are in the NFL.
There's more in the NFC.
There we go. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Rugiet. And guys, you've probably heard of Viagra, Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. And it's completely online. Rugiet's connects you with board-certified doctors and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. So head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit Rugiet website for full safety information. Don't the IC. NFC, there's more in the NFC.
Yes.
I think, yes. But they have fewer of the tier 1 guys. In fact, they have none.
Right. They have none. All right.
Yeah. I would argue, though, the closest to tier 1, even ahead of Herbert, is still Matthew Stafford.
I was going to say him or Daniels.
Well, Jaden Daniels as well, yeah. And sample size, I think, is a little bit short on Daniels.
Yes.
But again, he's exactly where Stroud was going into last year. Odds are he'll stay in tier 2, but he could be
he could
1.
take a step forward. So NFC East.
Yeah, Daniels.
Daniels is a yes. I'm not giving him an incomplete grade. It was too awesome of a season.
No.
Dak is a yes. We established that. I mean, he's kind of the definition of it. I'm going to say yes on Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can win a Super Bowl with him. I mean, I think we know that.
Right.
In terms of who do I pick up on my team, I would probably take all the other tier 2 guys ahead of Hurts, but maybe that sounds disrespectful, but he still counts as a tier 2 guy.
I mean, that's not disrespectful because they're really good.
They're really good. Right. So
Stroud, I'm taking Stroud. I'm taking Herbert. I'm taking Daniels over Hurts. So that's not even
disrespectful. Yeah. I mean, some people might fight us on Dak versus Hurts. I'd understand that, but I would prefer Dak slightly. Giants are a no.
Jordan Love.
He might be the hardest one. I'm going to say no, but I'm betting he will be.
We're grading difficult.
I don't say I want to be tough.
3. Okay.
But I would put a chip down that this time next year, he's a 2.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota's a no. Bears are a no.
Yeah, and they're hoping. They're crossing their fingers, and we wouldn't be shocked if either one of those quarterbacks is a 2 at some point.
What about Goff?
No.
I don't think so either. I think you win a lot of games with them.
But, I mean, the Hurts thing, like, you could win a Super Bowl. They're very close. And
that's what I was going to say.
He's been to a Super Bowl. He's been, like, deep in the playoffs with 2 different teams now.
He might be the best tier 3 guy. And you're not upset about having him.
But in the end, he's still, I mean, Goff, Lawrence, Tua, that's his neighborhood.
That's his neighborhood, yeah.
Like, you're not putting him clearly above any of those guys, I don't think.
I trust him more than those guys, probably because he's older and it's a bigger body work.
Yeah, I mean, to put it another way, if you put Lawrence or Love on the Lions, they would look better than they've looked on their current team.
1,000%.
Well, I guess Love has looked pretty good, and he's not been on a bad team or anything. But Goff is a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to go to the South.
NFC South. Kirk Cousins before last year.
Minnesota Cousins was probably close.
Minnesota Cousins was the test. It was, are you better or worse than Cousins? Mm-hmm. He was the Mendoza line for good starting quarterbacks. Now he for sure is not a tier 2 quarterback.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Penix is incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
Saints are no. Carolina no.
Yeah.
Baker needs to be discussed. I'm going to give him a no. But if he does another season like he did last year, I might be open to it.
Yeah, and again, we're grading difficult. So tier 3 is going to be a bigger tier, but it's still got some really good quarterbacks in it.
Right. So Mayfield's a no, but he's trending the right way, and they win a lot of games, and they win their division every year, all that good stuff. Now, that leaves the West.
Yeah.
I think Kyler's a no. Darnold's a no. Stafford's a screaming yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Purdy's you tell me what you think of Purdy.
Purdy's a cusp, and I can tell how this was going to go with Purdy because of how difficult we're grading this thing.
Mm-hmm.
If some of these guys in tier 3 were in tier 2, it would be a no-brainer for me that you put Purdy in tier 2. He's paid like a tier 2.
Yeah.
But he clearly goes below the ones that are in tier 2 currently.
He would be last for sure in the tier 2s for me.
But he belongs ahead of a lot of the quarterbacks in tier 3, I'm saying. And he might be the new Kirk Cousins.
It's a good point. Like him versus Goff is a conversation for me. But I'm taking Hurts over all of them. And I think Hurts was my worst tier 2 guy.
Yes. So
tier 2 is awesome. I mean, like people need to realize tier 2 is really, really good.
The way we've done it, tier 2 is fantastic. And so I'm just going to go ahead and put Purdy probably at the top of tier 3 in this.
Yeah.
And we need to see another big time season for him this year. And then we can talk about it again, maybe. So that means, okay, how do we rank? We have 6 tier 2 quarterbacks. That's the answer.
That's the rank of them.
Dak, Stroud, Herbert, Daniels, Hurts, Stafford. Hurts last, Dak just above him, correct?
Yes, agreed.
Okay. So that's 5 and 6 of tier 2. Herbert, Daniels, Stafford. I would rank them currently today 2025 because this isn't projecting as much in the future. It might maybe projecting 2025 because we haven't seen that season yet. But Stafford, Daniels, Herbert, Stroud.
That was the order I was going to say as well.
There we go.
And if it most likely to get to tier 1 would be Daniels followed by Herbert for me.
Mm-hmm.
Stafford's book is probably written.
And pretty close for these guys. This is a tier. That's why they're a tier, because they're grouped together, right? So there we go.
Like a lot of those guys are the best quarterback in their division. Probably 12 games a year, they're the best quarterback on the field.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
The tier 3 quarterbacks, many times they are better than the opposing team's quarterback. But if you're going against a really good quarterback, you don't have a better quarterback. That's tier 3. Right. But you feel okay about your starter. You feel good about your starter. And you might have a guy that you are expecting to jump into tier 2, or at times has played like a tier 2, but they still belong in tier 3 for us. There's just something preventing them from being considered with the next group of guys.
We're grading difficult.
I like where we're at. So is tier 3 then Purdy, Tua, Lawrence, Nix, Baker, Geno, Love, Goff, and then I have a question mark with Kyler and Darnold.
I don't know if I can put Darnold there if we're going to be strict graders.
The way Darnold played last year was for sure with these guys, but he hasn't shown that throughout his entire career.
Let me see it again. Right. And there's a couple of those 3s that could easily sneak into 2.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier for a 3 to get to a 2 than a 2 to get to a 1.
Correct. And pretty easy for a 3 to become a 4 as well.
Oh, yeah. Darnold could be a 4 in a heartbeat, or, one of those guys gets old, or,
Kyler Murray, you're just kind of like, what are you going to do something or you're not going to do something, right? And it's kind of a similar thing with Lawrence, or maybe, a Nix falls off after a good year, or things fall apart around Goff, and you're like, he was just propped up by really good teams and offensive coordinators his entire career. Similarly with Tua, and
Geno gets old, or
really all of them. So I like it. I love where we're at. I think
I agree.
All right, let us know what you think at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Our final topic here today, in forgive us, it's 49ers and Steelers related, but we're just using our teams that we know best as an idea for what you would prefer as a fan. Do you want an up and down roller coaster? Do you want consistency? And again, thanks to our listeners for the question on that one next. It's kind of a Mike Tomlin versus Kyle Shanahan conversation.
They're the poster boys.
Yeah, we'll get to it next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Gametime, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you are a sports fan, and I know you are because you're listening to this podcast, you got to have Gametime in your pocket at all times, just ready to go. It's a no-brainer for sports fans. If you ever want to go to a concert, comedy show, theater event, whatever it is, and sometimes last minute, you want to head to a ball game with friends or family, right? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize that you want to be in the stands. It's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge maybe on some beverages, right? Food, merch, maybe invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer it gets to, say, first pitch of a baseball game. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and lowest price guarantee. It takes the worry out of buying. Exclusive zone deals, 10% off zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, I've talked about this very subject on Locked On 49ers, and I've had some pushback from fans. We've talked about it. Matt, I'm sure you've had similar conversations about Mike Tomlin, and some fans probably have pitchforks, want him gone. They've seen enough. They want a ring, and some fans are like, are you crazy? They win 10 games every year, even with terrible quarterback play, right? And the consistency there. And our guy Joshua, who is the Jerry Rice of question askers, had this question in this week's mailbag. We didn't get to it yesterday, but I think we can get to it quickly here today. And the question is, what does sustained success even mean? All the Steelers talk this week has me wondering if Tomlin can be said to have sustained success in the NFL. For sure, sustained success in the NFL, I would say, is a resounding yes. In recent years,
enough success is the question.
Yes, still been very good in recent years, but like win a playoff game, I think is kind of where Steelers fans are. It's like, oh, well, it's cool when you're competing and then you win a championship, and then you're competing and then you win a championship. But when you're just kind of competing and then you're like, oh, we're not very good and you can't even win a playoff game, like that just drops a little bit below where I think Steelers fans would like to be right now.
That's massive. Around here it's been way too long since they've won a playoff game by Steelers standards, and every year sort of seems the same. That okay, you're a wild card team, you go on the road, and then you get destroyed by Mahomes, Allen, or Lamar. You know what I mean? So okay, yeah, you had your winning season, you checked that box, you got to the playoffs, and you weren't competitive even in the game. You got killed by a clearly better team. And that's really getting old around here, which I understand. Yeah. But boy, it's a spoiled fan base.
And here's the thing and the reason we use the 49ers and the Steelers here, and it's Tomlin versus Shanahan. If we're talking about recent history, neither one of these guys has won a title. Now, Tomlin has won, but it's been a while. And so we're talking about, basically since Shanahan showed up, 2017 to now. And the Niners have had 4 awesome seasons in 8 years, and they've been drafted in the top 10, 12 picks 4 times in the Shanahan.
50%, right.
And he took over a bad team, and they had to rebuild it, and all of a sudden they were in the Super Bowl in 2019 now in year 3 of the Shanahan regime. So it's been really up and down, and they've done some crazy stuff, and the Trey Lance thing, and then ended up with the last pick in the draft, Brock Purdy being their franchise quarterback. It's been an awesome team to cover. I prefer covering the 49ers because it's been fun, and I'm sure it's fun covering the Steelers as well because they're always consistent. And for sure, and like this isn't a conversation of you got to push Tomlin out of town. Like we got to drive Shanahan out of town. Like I don't think either one of these guys should be fired. I think they're 2 of the better head coaches in the NFL because
they're super different.
There's a lot of but they're so different. And there's a lot of fan bases out there that are like, oh, boo-hoo. You had a couple of bad seasons and then you went to NFC championship games and Super Bowls.
Right.
We've just been bad the whole time. Right. So there's that. And I think that's what you have to remind 49ers fans. You have to remind Steelers fans, like you can pick nits and you can talk about what a head coach needs to improve upon, what an organization needs to improve upon, what the standard should be, and want your organization to be more successful than they have been, but also realize you could be the Jets or the Browns.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's just a total coincidence that you're a Niner guy and I'm a Steeler guy because between the two of them, they have a dozen trophies. They're two of the true dynasties. You know, some people aren't old enough to remember those things, but I mean, the high times were the highest, you know, like besides maybe New England in NFL history. Hall of Famers galore, you know, so many fun players to root for over the years. I mean, so many Hall of Famers, so much success. But the head coaches are so different. You know, like Shanahan might be the best offensive mind walking planet Earth right now, and Tomlin had Matt Canada. You know,
and that's kind of the thing. So, like 49ers fans, we talk about this and be like, man, you know, I think Shanahan could take a page out of Mike Tomlin's book, and maybe that would be the last part of him becoming a great head coach in the NFL, maybe getting that ring. And the pushback is Tomlin hasn't even won a playoff game. Like, who cares if you're winning 9-10 games?
Right.
You're not winning playoff games. We've been to the Super Bowl. Shanahan clearly a better head coach. What are you doing talking about Mike Tomlin? And I think my response to that is, well, we're not talking about Mike Tomlin as, you know, the Ben Roethlisberger era Mike Tomlin. We're talking about the guy who's had garbage quarterback play, frankly, for the last, and still hasn't cratered. The 49ers still had star players and they're winning 6 games. Like, that can't happen.
That can't happen.
I think in the end, when you talk about these two things, if it's specifically to Mike Tomlin and Kyle Shanahan, I think, Matt, what ideally would happen is that they would be together.
Because then they're like the perfect coach.
Then you do have rings, right?
Right.
I think that's why they're both shy of the rings over the course of the last 8 years. Is I think they could really.
My strengths are your weaknesses are my strengths. You know, et cetera.
Absolutely. Yep. And when you talk about, would you rather have a roller coaster ride or consistency? There's been some teams on roller coaster rides and consistently bad, and so both of these teams have been on the good side of the roller coaster and the consistency. So. But neither one has won a ring. That's why I didn't want to bring the Rams into this. The Rams would be a good one, who's also been a roller coaster, and they went up and down, and they went all in and then crashed back down and building it back up again. But they got themselves a ring, which makes the question too easy to answer. We're like, oh, nope, I'll take the ring because they got the ring.
Bucs did the same with Brady.
Right.
You know, like they really pushed their chips in and they won. The Browns pushed their chips in on Deshaun Watson, and most teams don't.
Yep. And they had that one ride up at the top and fell all the way back down again. And who knows where they're going to end up being here now. But it's a very interesting conversation, because what would you rather? Would you rather be the 49ers going up and down and still not winning one, or be consistent and also still not winning one?
I bet your fan base is similar to mine, where they would just take the grass being greener on the other side. Because the Niners at least went to a Super Bowl, you know, lately, and have won playoff games and thought maybe they could win the whole thing. But everyone around here, trade TJ Watt, trade Cam Hayward, tank, bottom out. I can handle a year being 3-14. And I'm like, okay, you call me around Christmas to see how happy you are when this team is 3-12.
Yeah.
You've never dealt with it.
I think for the 49ers, because they've had some lean years. They had this dynasty, and then they all of a sudden were bad for a while. Harbaugh came up, and it was a very similar roller coaster ride. Like, awesome, came back down, good again, up and down in the Shanahan era. So they've been used to having some losing seasons. But I think if you started to double up on those, things would get very weird this offseason if the 49ers have another bad season. Because they've always
3 in a row.
Yeah, and I think all the 49ers fans are like, oh, well, cool. We had that bad season, a lot of injuries. Here we go, NFC Championship. Let's go. If that stops happening, then all of a sudden the roller coaster's on the low end, I think, too much. And for the Steelers, do they get good quarterback play? And then we might actually get to see more of the high end of what that team can be. So this is going to be a fascinating year, I think, to maybe answer this question and then maybe revisit it after this year. But in the end, man, if we could get Tomlinson and Shanahan together, I think that would be awesome.
So just a couple Steeler notes that I regurgitate around here a lot. And I believe it a little less now than I did 2 or 3 years ago. But Tomlin's history shows if you give him a tier 1, tier 2 quarterback, they're a Super Bowl contender.
Well, everyone is with a tier 1, but even
right. I'm talking about what was Ben. He was, yeah.
He's a tier 1 guy.
He was a tier 1 guy, right? He's a Hall of Famer, right?
Until the end.
So if you give him a top quarterback, here's actually how I said it. If you give him a quarterback in the top third of the league, the Steelers compete for titles.
That's what I'm saying. Like any of these tier 3 quarterbacks we talked about, put them on they were winning 10 games already, right?
With Kirk Cousins the last 5 years. Yeah, they'll probably win a playoff game or two.
A quarterback who threw 13 touchdowns 2 years in a row. Is that what it was? Yeah. 26 touchdowns in 2 seasons. Not 1 season.
Combined.
2 seasons, 26 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Give them Geno, Love, Goff, Purdy.
All those guys. Right.
And Darnold.
Yeah. They might not beat Lamar constantly, but there would be more wins and more playoff wins. And
I think it's a feather in Tomlin's cap. Now, I think you also have to look at the organization and Tomlin himself and be like, okay, well, you can't have that bad of quarterback play for that long. What are you doing?
Oh, right. Eventually be like, well, that's not okay. You can't just keep rolling out Duck Hodges, you know.
But what Tomlin has done with the Duck Hodges of the world, I think has been phenomenal. And so I would hire Tomlin in 2 seconds if he became available. And I would probably hire Shanahan in 2 seconds if he
And that's the argument around here too, is well, if he gets fired, he get hired in a heartbeat. Well, it doesn't mean they shouldn't move on or consider it though, too. Maybe he's worn out his welcome or, you know, but so I got 2 more Steeler things. We'll wrap it up. But I found a graphic, most regular season wins in the 2000s. The Steelers are second behind the Patriots. And then a million people right back and are like, well, do it for playoffs. I'm like, I think they were 6th. I mean, that's in the 2000s. I know that lately there hasn't been, but it's not that much worse even, you know, in the last 25 years. And then I cited this to you before too, which still blows me away. Chuck Noll. So again, I'm 52. I just turned 52 about a month ago. I was born in 1973. I've seen 3 head coaches in my lifetime. Chuck Noll became the head coach in 1969. And people don't know Steeler history like I do, but they were the laughing stock of the world, like way worse than the Pirates. They had 50 straight losing seasons. I mean, like the worst franchise on the planet. So Noll in his first year goes 1-13. Then he gets them to 5-9. Then he gets them to 6-8. Okay, so that gets us to 1972, where maybe I'm in my mommy's belly, but I have not yet seen the earth. Since then, the Steelers have had 7 losing seasons.
Yeah,
it's insane.
And even the 49ers have been a great organization. They've had 3 head coaches in 10 years since 2015.
That's normal.
Yeah. That's normal. So that's
normal, right?
Like the model of consistency is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think a lot of fan bases out there would very much appreciate that. And they've won titles throughout that time. So it's hard to fault them for being the consistent team that they've been. And Tomlin was so young when he was hired too. It's like, it's not like Tomlin's an old head coach. He's kind of an old head because of how long he's had the job and so many young coaches around the NFL. But just figure out quarterback in the offense. And I think they move so slow. Could you move just a tick sooner? Like you could have moved a year sooner on some of these things.
Yeah, right. And Pickett wasn't the answer, obviously. You know.
Right. Yeah,
that set you back.
Weird swing for a quarterback. He was in your backyard, but he wasn't really.
Not enough upside. I hope they learned their lesson there. That next year when they take one in the first round, it can't just be, I'm happy with a leadoff walk.
You might need to move up a little bit.
Oh, I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, because
they're going to trade 2 first-round picks and get to number 7 and, you know, take the 3rd quarterback off the board.
There you go. In a great quarterback class. Next year's the year. We'll find out. With this
year draft here in town, I'll be there.
Depending on how easy that trade up will be is how good Aaron Rodgers is in his year in Pittsburgh.
Right. Well, they'll probably end up with the 20th pick like they always do.
Bad Aaron Rodgers is still better than a lot of stuff I've seen with the Steelers. So, again, fascinating year in 2025 for both Kyle Shanahan and Mike Tomlin. Let us know what you think. Would you rather be the consistent team or the roller coaster team? Matt and I back Monday. We're talking wide receivers. I think we're going to have Aaron Freeman, Locked On Falcons, on preview that team, preview some more as we get ready for 2025. Peacock Williamson